Hi guys, I'm Mike and this is F1 Fanatic. Wow! I mean guys, what a race that was. I have no idea how Ash actually managed to put that into words. I'm like, we asked for rain. The rain came and the rain delivered. We had drama, we had spins, we had retirements. I think it was the most retirements in the race so far this season. We had drama at the front, we had drama in the middle, we had drama at the back, we had drama everywhere. It was a drama-filled race. It was absolute mayhem, absolute chaos, and I loved it. What a race. I mean, I think my previous favourite race of all time was when Jenson Button won in Canada in 2011, when he somehow managed to go from being near the front to the back to being penalised again to being all the way at the back and then winning the race on the last lap with Sebastian Vettel flipping out. But that was one driver. I mean, there was carnage stories for every driver in this race. So welcome to our new feature, which is driver ratings, where we take a look at all the drivers in the race and we give them a rating out of 10, and you guys can comment below whether you agree, disagree with what we think the driver ratings are. So let's get into it, guys. So coming in number 20 is Checo Perez. He spun out early doors. He couldn't get any heat in his intermediates, a little bit heavy on the accelerator, and ended up in the wall. Sorry, Checo, I do like you, but for this week, crashing out so early, it is a 1 out of 10 for me. Moving on to Danny Ric, and clearly the engine problems at Red Bull were not enough, so he wanted to go directly to Renault when he signed with them for the engine problems. And actually, they resorted, because they thought they were going to do better at Hungary. They put their first engine back in the car, and that first engine couldn't handle it. It packed up, it was out. Not really Danny Ric's fault, but he wasn't necessarily having a great weekend, so I'm going to give him a 4 out of 10. Moving on to number 3, Lando Norris. Now, this is probably the first race where Lando Norris has struggled all year. He's had an absolutely fantastic rookie season so far, but this weekend he just couldn't get it together. So he is going to get a 4 out of 10. Again, like Danny Ric, it wasn't his fault that he retired from the race, but he had an hydraulics failure. But still, the race wasn't necessarily going great for him up to that point. So I'm going to give him a 4 out of 10. Moving on to the first big retirement from the race, and that is Charles Leclerc. He again, surely first win might have been in his grasp if he did it. And I don't know if he knew Hamilton was obviously slow in the pits and he wanted to kind of maybe push and see if he could get really on him on the pit exit and see if he could overtake him early doors, but he must have taken that last corner too quick. He lost it. He went into the wall, got beached on the gravel, and he was having a very good race up until that point. So I'm going to give Leclerc a 6 out of 10, and it should have been so much more this weekend. Moving on to Nico Hülkenberg, and I think it pains every F1 fan that Nico Hülkenberg, in his home Grand Prix, he had that first podium in his grasp with everything chaos going on. No, he lost it. He lost it at the same point that all the other drivers lost it in that race somehow, which was on the last corner. And he thought he regained the car, went on the accelerator, realised he hadn't got it, slammed the brakes, and then slowly slid into a wall. And painfully, his hopes of getting a podium in this race, in his home Grand Prix, slid away. Up until that point, I think you've done well as well. So I'm going to give Nico a 6 out of 10. Valtteri Bottas. Now, the Mercedes got it, like I said, so wrong this weekend. This was an absolute nightmare of a weekend that they cannot wait to forget in terms of the tactical side of things and strategy. They got the strategy so wrong in the race from pretty much the first pit stop. Well, probably the second pit stop, because the first pit stop came pretty early after Sergio crashed into the wall. And with Bottas, he was just pushing, and he probably pushed too far. Him himself, I don't think Bottas necessarily had a poor race, but neither did I really think he had a great race. And obviously, with resulting in getting no points and crashing out of the race in the end, I think I'm going to have to give him a 6 out of 10 as well. I don't think, I was veering maybe on 7, but I don't think I can give him any higher than a 6 out of 10 for this weekend. Then Pierre had a great weekend in Silverstone, confidence, fantastic qualifying as well, getting himself up there, but both Red Bulls had that wheel spin at the start and he dropped back, and then he was fighting in the mid-battle. Maybe he might have finished a 4th or a 5th in the end if he'd managed to do it, but he was going for an overtake on Albon right at the end, and he misjudged. Well, they both went right. Racing incident, like Ash said, and he misjudged it, lost his front wing, and yeah, had to retire from the race. And poor Pierre Gasly, it got worse with him, with Kvyat taking that podium, didn't he? I think I saw a kind of picture on Twitter of Helmut Marko with the caption of going Helmut on the phone to Toro Rosso after the race, after Daniel Kvyat's podium. I mean, I'd be surprised if it went this quickly, but it doesn't help Pierre Gasly, does it, guys? Doesn't at all. So I'm going to give him a 5 out of 10. I don't think he did anything extraordinary outside the car like Max did, but I don't think he did anything kind of horrifically too bad. So 5 out of 10 for Pierre Gasly, guys. Moving on to the 2 Alphas, Giovinazzi and then Raikkonen, and it looks such a good weekend for the Alphas, but that kind of penalty from the race starts, they've gone severe on it. I think they're classified as 13th and 12th in the race now. So what would have been a good point scoring weekend for the Alphas has now turned into a terrible weekend for the Alphas with that penalty. So they both finished outside the points. Giovinazzi, I can't really think. I think it's more of a team game, so I'm going to give them both 7s out of 10s, because in the race and finishing they've actually driven pretty well, so they're both going to get 7 out of 10s for me. Then we move on to the Williams, George Russell filling 11 and Robert Kubica with Williams' first points of the season. Woohoo! 1 point on the board. Probably a little bit gutted for George, as he's obviously out-qualified Kubica in every race and finished him before this race in every race bar one. Robert Kubica is the one to bring that first point into the Williams garage. And you know what? They've been improving in Silverstone. They'd improved this weekend, obviously, with a lot of help from penalties and from retirements. They have managed to score their first points. But I think it is a reward for all the guys at Williams who've been working so hard this season. Obviously, they've been way off the pace, but they've been working hard every race, trying to get back, trying to get competitive, and they've got a point. And so you can't begrudge them. So again, I think nothing too exceptional from them, because obviously a lot of retirements and penalties going there, but I'm going to say there were solid drives like they always are from the Williams. So it's a 7 out of 10 for George Russell and a 7 out of 10 for Robert Kubica. Now, Lewis Hamilton, the other Mercedes, they've been saving grace from the penalties of the Alphas. That Lewis has actually moved up into the points and gained 2 points from a weekend that just looked an absolute total disaster. But you've got to say it's still a terrible weekend for the Mercedes. And Lewis Hamilton rarely went against his gut. He knew the slicks weren't right, which then caused him to have that spin and then caused the resulting penalties of entering the pit or the wrong side of the bollard after losing that front nose. He should have gone with his gut like he usually does and tell the team no. And Mercedes were defiant. I don't know, in the week they were saying they're trying to match the team strategies because obviously Bottas went on slicks. Maybe they thought that they had to bring Hamilton in on slicks because they didn't want to show unconscious favouritism, but they really should have listened to Lewis Hamilton. And after that, after being probably a 10 out of 10 in the first half of the race, from there, I'm going to give Lewis a 6 out of 10. He spun out a couple of 10s and was frustrated, got penalties. From there, he had a terrible race in the end. And I think probably all bared from that frustration of not following his gut, because he knew that he was right to stay on the Inters. It wasn't the right time to go in the slicks when so many of those people went on at the wrong time. Moving on to the Haas guys, and it was a double point scoring for the Haas, probably desperately needed. Again, helped out by those penalties to the Alfa Romeos with Magnussen moving up. But Grosjean had been fantastic all weekend, like I discussed on Friday. Kind of a good thing, kind of a bad thing, but I don't think really the specs would have made too much difference in this race. It was just about the drivers and sticking in there. So they finished 8th and 7th in the classification, which is absolutely fantastic. So I'm going to give Magnussen a 7 out of 10. I think it was probably a solid drive. And I'm going to give Grosjean an 8 out of 10. I think he had a really good weekend and he really needed this. It was a very good race for Haas, for Romain Grosjean. Now we move on to the first of the fantastic Toro Rosso weekend in Alexander Albon, who finished in 6th in the race. And that is just fantastic point scoring for the young rookie. Absolutely amazing race that he drove, pretty much flawless throughout. And I'm going to give Alex Albon an 8 out of 10. I thought it was an absolutely superb drive from him. Carlos Sainz somehow managed to finish 5th, and he'd spun it at some point. He'd almost spun into the wall on that last corner, like so many people had kind of gone out, was reversing back onto the track, but somehow he's managed to stay in there. Early doors, he seemed to be using the kind of track limits far more than the track. But yeah, somehow Carlos Sainz has finished 5th. I don't think it's one of Carlos's best drives, but he again is in that top 6, making it now 5 out of 6 races with McLaren finishing in the top 6. I suppose for sticking at it, you have to give him an 8 out of 10 in my book. So Carlos Sainz, 8 out of 10. Moving on to 4th, and Lance Stroll. And I'm torn on this one. I've got to give Lance Stroll credit. So well done to Lance there. But I do think this result is massively on the team at Racing Point. Because that time to bring in Stroll onto the slicks was the perfect time. And he got ahead. And that is what put him in the position of almost where he was leading the race for a bit and almost getting a podium there. But he really struggled towards the end. I'm going to give them an 8 out of 10 just for the team strategy. I think Lance Stroll himself probably drove a 7 out of 10 race. He wasn't exceptional, but he wasn't bad. And obviously finishing 4th, highest points finish for the Racing Point this season, it's got to be fantastic. But I think it would have been interesting to see where Checo would have finished if he had managed to complete the race. 3, the big man, Danny Kvyat, absolutely sensational drive. Flawless from start to finish in turbulent, in really tough conditions. I mean, this is so good to see because Daniel Kvyat, since coming back into F1 with Toro Rosso this year, he has been superb, and I think he's really matured as a driver, and this is really congratulations of how he's been progressing through the season and really competing, because obviously it must have been hard when he got the Red Bull seat, he got sent back to Toro Rosso and then lost the Toro Rosso seat, but he's back, they've stuck faith in him, and wow, their 2nd ever podium, guys. That is amazing. I'm going to give Daniel Kvyat a 10 out of 10. I thought his race was absolutely superb. On to number 2, Sebastian Vettel. Again, I think he was amazing. 20th, and he finished second. Obviously, all those retirements and things and everything, but Ferrari actually got the strategy for Vettel right. And he had so much pace at the end, and you just think if Charles Leclerc had finished, he probably might have finished ahead of Max Verstappen. But wow, what a race by Sebastian Vettel. Such a contrast from last year. And guys, he needed it, and F1 needs Sebastian Vettel performing well. I'm going to give him a 10 out of 10 as well. I can't remember in the race any spins from Vettel himself. I think it was pretty flawless. He stuck in there, he drove, he was relentless, he pushed to the end, and he got that second place on the podium, and he must have been full of smiles. I mean, because on Saturday it must have looked woes, but it was just triumphant. Not quite as triumphant as first, but second is pretty much as good as it could have got for Vettel on that day. So 10 out of 10 for Vettel. And then we get to the Mad Max Verstappen. Wow, what a race from Max. I mean, he was spinning out as well. Sensational from the Dutchman. I mean, just going, and then I think the second half of the race, Red Bull strategy was on point. They were exceptional, guys. They were so good, and it's his second win of the season, and that Red Bull car is looking really good now. I mean, obviously it's conditions, but I mean, obviously there were some strategy things with Lewis, but today Max outraced Lewis in the rain, and Lewis is probably still overall the best in the rain, but absolutely amazing drive from Max. It's got to be a 10 out of 10. Fantastic race, guys. Unbelievable. Those are our driver ratings from 20 to 1. Let us know what you think below. Let us know if you think I'm wrong. Let us know if you think I'm right. But wow, what a race, guys. Our full race review, we're going to be recording that tonight, and it should be out after editing tomorrow, guys. Hopefully you look forward to that. Guys, if you like what we do on the channel, don't forget to give us a thumbs up. I said comment below, get involved in the conversation, and make sure if you like what you do, go and click that subscribe button and then the bell notifications to let you know when we're releasing videos, because guys, what a race. Fantastic. Hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. And remember, F1 fans, keep racing.